You think you know someone. You think you understand them, their dreams, their secrets, and their desires. But sometimes the person you trust the most will break you in ways you never imagined. I'm Nate, and this is the story of how I gave my wife, Kira, a second chance. But this time, the betrayal cut deeper, and the pain was something I couldn't escape. I never thought I'd be telling this story. But life has a way of throwing you curveballs you never see coming. I'm Nate, and I gave my wife, Kira, a second chance after she betrayed me once. I thought I was strong enough to forgive. I thought that with time, we could rebuild what had been shattered. But that second betrayal hit me harder than the first, and this time, the cracks in our marriage were too wide to fix. We all have that one person we trust with our hearts, the one we believe will never hurt us. For me, that was Kira. She was my world, beautiful, intelligent, strong, and loving. We met in college, and it felt like we were meant to be. We built a life together, a house, dreams, plans for the future. It all felt perfect. But then, that perfect world came crashing down. It's impossible to describe the moment your heart breaks. It's not like you see it coming. The betrayal isn't a single event that occurs in an instant. No, it's a slow burn, a creeping suspicion that something's off. You start noticing things that weren't there before. The extra time spent at work, the texts she's hiding, the phone calls she's quick to end when you walk into the room. I found out about the affair a week before Christmas. Kira had been distant for months. It wasn't just that she was working late. It was the way she looked at me, almost like she was looking through me. The intimacy we once shared had all but disappeared. One evening, after a particularly cold conversation, I decided to check her phone. I'd never done that before, but something inside me told me I had to. What I found wasn't a text message or a flirtatious email. No, what I found was far worse: explicit messages, photos, and plans for a weekend getaway with Jason, a guy from her office. My hands shook as I read through the messages. The words felt like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just emotionally distant. She was emotionally involved with someone else. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She didn't try to lie her way out. Instead, she cried big, heaving sobs that I once thought were genuine. But even in that moment, I couldn't help but feel that something was missing. She wasn't crying because she regretted what she had done. She was crying because she got caught. Her betrayal wasn't just an affair, it was the breaking of my trust. I didn't know who she was anymore. The woman I had spent years building a life with was now a stranger. For days, I didn't know what to do. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, but I couldn't focus. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. My entire world felt like it was falling apart. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that Kira, the woman I had loved, had done this to me. The hardest part wasn't even the affair itself. The hardest part was looking into her eyes and realizing that the person who had promised to be there for me, no matter what, had broken that promise. We didn't talk about it for a few days. It was like the elephant in the room. We both knew what had happened, but neither of us wanted to face it. I didn't know how to look at her. How do you look at someone who has shattered everything you believed about them? But then she came to me. She apologized. She begged for my forgiveness, swearing that it was a mistake, that she was lost and confused. She promised me that it would never happen again. And in that moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could rebuild. I told myself I could forgive her. Maybe it wasn't just about the affair. Maybe we could fix the other things that had gone wrong in our marriage. I still loved her. I believed in us, in the life we had built together. So, I made the decision to give her a second chance. Rebuilding trust after an affair is never easy. It wasn't like I could just forgive her and expect everything to go back to normal. There were long nights of difficult conversations, countless hours in therapy, and more than a few arguments. But there were also moments of healing, slow, painful moments where I started to feel like maybe, just maybe, we could get through this. We went to therapy. We worked on our communication, our intimacy, and our connection. I tried to be patient, to allow her the space to prove herself again. But every time she left the house, every time she picked up the phone, I couldn't help but wonder if she was talking to Jason. The past had a way of creeping back into our lives. But slowly, Kira began to regain my trust. There were moments of vulnerability, of closeness that we had lost. We laughed together again. We shared memories. I told myself that we were healing, that I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I knew I was holding on to something. I wasn't whole. Not yet. One night, about 6 months after we started rebuilding, I came home late from work. The house was quiet. Kira's car was in the driveway, but there was no sign of her. I walked in through the front door and heard voices coming from the kitchen. I froze, listening. It was Kira. She was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her voice was soft, seductive, intimate. I stepped closer, trying to make sense of the conversation. And then I heard the words that froze my blood. "I miss you. I'll see you soon. You're still my favorite. Don't worry, Nate won't suspect anything." The words hit me like a physical blow. Jason. It was Jason again. The betrayal wasn't just physical this time. It was deeper. It was calculated. She had made me believe she had changed, that she had learned her lesson. But here she was, in my own house, hiding her secret once more. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. I needed time to process what I had just heard. But the next day, when she came home from work, I had to face the truth. "Are you seeing him again?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. She didn't deny it. She didn't even apologize. Instead, she looked at me with a mixture of pity and frustration. "Yes, I'm seeing him again. I never stopped seeing him. I just didn't think you'd find out." I wish I could say I was shocked, but I wasn't. I had suspected something deep down. Maybe I didn't want to believe it, but the signs were too glaring to ignore. The second betrayal didn't feel like a punch in the gut. It felt like a knife twisting deeper into the wound that was already there. I had given her my trust, my forgiveness, and in return, she had taken that and thrown it away. Kira's eyes didn't show regret. They showed defiance, almost like she was daring me to say something, anything that could challenge her decision. Her words echoed in my mind. "I never stopped seeing him." "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking with a combination of anger and disbelief. "Why go through all of this, after everything we've been through?" She shrugged, as if it was the most casual thing in the world. "You never really knew me, Nate. I did it because I wanted to, and I didn't think it would matter this much to you. I thought I could keep you and have him too." I stood there, unable to move. My mind raced, trying to understand how the woman I once loved could so easily betray me again. The pain was raw, it was fresh, but there was also something else. It wasn't just hurt anymore, it was anger. Real, deep anger. And most of all, it was disappointment. For a moment, everything went quiet. I could hear the sound of my own breath, the steady rhythm of my heartbeat in my chest. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, I said, "You broke me, Kira. You shattered everything we had." Her expression softened for just a moment, but it was too little, too late. "I never meant to hurt you," she said quietly, but I could hear the hollow emptiness in her voice. "I just couldn't help myself." Her words were no longer enough to calm me. I felt like a stranger in my own house, looking at the woman I once thought I knew so well. I didn't recognize her anymore. I spent the next few days wrestling with my thoughts. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kira with Jason, laughing, whispering, the way she used to laugh with me. The way she used to be mine. The first betrayal had been hard enough. It had torn us apart, but we tried to rebuild. I told myself I could forgive her, that I could move on. But now? How could I move on from this? How could I trust her again? I thought about all the good times we had shared, the moments of pure joy, the dreams we had planned. Was that all a lie? Was it just an illusion? Or was I the fool who had fallen for it? I realized that I was no longer the same person. The man who once believed in the power of love and forgiveness was no more. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The second betrayal wasn't just about Kiara's affair with Jason. It wasn't about the lies or the secrecy. It was about the way she had manipulated me, had made me believe that things could be fixed when, in reality, she was only pretending to try. I thought I could forgive her again, but how could I? After everything we had been through, she had shown me that she wasn't the woman I thought she was. She didn't care about me, she cared about her own desires, her own needs, her own selfishness. I didn't confront her immediately. In fact, I avoided her. I went to work, I spent hours on my own, drowning in the noise of my own thoughts. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as her. I needed space. Time. I needed to figure out what I wanted. But eventually, I had to face her. I couldn't run forever. That evening, when I finally came home, she was sitting on the couch, waiting. Her eyes were red from crying. But I wasn't sure if her tears were for me or for herself. She was still trying to hold on to something, to make it seem like she regretted what she'd done. But I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. "Why, Kiara?" I asked. "Why should I forgive you? What's left for me to hold on to?" She looked down, her hands trembling. "I don't know. I thought I could make it work. I thought we could have everything." I shook my head. "No, Kiara. You don't get it. You don't just get to say that and expect everything to be okay. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep forgiving you only to be hurt again." She stood up, reaching for me, her hands trembling. "Nate, please. I'm sorry. I'll change. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I stepped back, my heart racing. "How do I know you'll change? How do I know you won't just do this again?" She was silent for a long moment. I could see the fear in her eyes, but it didn't reach me. The trust was gone. I couldn't fix that. Not anymore. I knew then that the marriage was over. No matter how hard I tried to cling to the hope that things could go back to how they were, I realized that this wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't the person I thought I knew. As I stood there, staring at her, I realized that forgiveness wasn't always the answer. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away. And as painful as it was, I knew that it was time to let go. For both of us. It wasn't easy. It wasn't painless. But it was the right thing to do. For my peace. For my happiness. For my future. I walked out of that house that night, my heart heavy but my mind clear. It was over. And now, I had to figure out what came next. The days after were a blur. I moved out, packed my things, and left behind the memories of a life I thought I was going to have. But as time went on, I realized that healing didn't happen overnight. It took months. Maybe years. But I learned something valuable through this painful journey. Forgiveness is not always about the other person. Sometimes, it's about forgiving yourself. I forgave myself for staying as long as I did, for believing that things could change. And with that forgiveness came the clarity I needed to move on. I found myself again, slowly. I focused on my career, my friends, and most importantly, myself. And though it was hard, I started to rebuild my life. And that's when I realized that sometimes, life isn't about fixing what's broken. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to let go and allowing yourself to move on to something better.